to me.
Information, news, and entertainment on demand.
WSRadio.com.
Welcome to The Changing Stage, music gear talk from the manufacturers and musicians who define the biz. Here's your host, Florentino Buenaventura.
Welcome to the Changing Stage radio show, powered by WS Radio Networks and brought to you by musicpower.com, where real musicians help you with real gear. And like always, well, actually, this is a very special day because it's not our normal day. It's a Tuesday morning, but we've got a very, very special guest, and I'm as giddy as a schoolgirl right now because, wow, this man has really innovated the industry of recording and music and acoustical architecture, and he's just, I'm just, floored. He is the rock star of rock stars. He's the man that makes the sound for all these folks, at least with acoustical design, and his name is John Storyk. John, you there?
I am here. Thanks. How are you?
I'm doing good, sir. I'm doing great, man. It's a beautiful Tuesday here in San Diego, and we're really happy to have you. In fact, you're on the beach somewhere, right?
I'm on exactly the other side of the country. I'm on an island off of western Florida. I'm on Captiva Island, looking at the Gulf of Mexico.
Nice. That's wonderful. See, folks, if you want to get into music, go into architectural design. That's how you live.
Well,
and you're there with your family. I heard your son was there with you too, so that's awesome.
Yeah, it's a family 1 week a year retreat, more or less the same time. But the beat goes on. 24/7. Happy to be here. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you for coming on, sir. And for those folks that don't know his name, or if you haven't heard John Storyk, I know you've heard something by him. He is the man who, your first project right out of school was design Electric Lady Studios for Jimi Hendrix. You went on to do thousands of studios, architectural design, buildings. You've worked with some of the biggest names, and I think I told you earlier that I could actually take up a whole hour just to going through your clients. But Bob Marley, The Boss, Bruce Springsteen, Jay-Z, Alicia Keys, Aerosmith, Berklee College of Music. We have a studio here in San Diego at the Art Institute, if I'm not mistaken. CBS.
That's correct.
A&M Records, Def Jam Records, even Coca-Cola. That's crazy. So, and of course, Electric Lady Studios for Jimi Hendrix, where you cut your teeth in architectural design. From that, I'd like to kind of start off with passion. What was your passion? I know that you were a musician. What did you play? And then how did you kind of fall into this or design into this, if you will?
Well, I guess there's two stories. The short one is always grew up almost from when I can remember being a musician and wanting to be an architect. I know I wanted to be an architect at the age of 11. I even found a career paper that said that. And I never really wavered. I went to college for architecture. I was a mechanical draftsman in high school for summer jobs and graduated from college in 68 as an architect, went on to work for an architect. But I also was in orchestra and marching band, and then, like so many of us, wanted to be a rock and roll player. Actually, I was in a blues band. That was my favorite music. So summer of 68 arrives, and I'm in a band, and I'm working as an architect. And actually, the band, I really thought I would be a musician more than an architect. So the short story is combined the two passions into this field, nice and neat, and that wraps it up. And that does seem like a nice story, but that's not exactly what happened. A kind of series of very strange serendipitous events took place very quickly, all within less than 1 year.
Wow.
In New York City in 1968. And if you can imagine New York City in 1968 as advertised, it's a wild and very interesting time. Ground zero for some pretty wild stuff. And got a small commission to do a very unusual club, which in Soho, of course, Soho wasn't even a word then, and actually answered an ad to free carpentry work. The free carpentry work turns into design. The design turned into the club. The club opens. It became very famous very quickly. It was a kind of a sensorium with changing lights and colors and whatnot. And within months, everybody's going to this club, including one night Jimi Hendrix, who decides to buy a club. In fact, he ended up buying the club that I used to go and visit to listen to blues musicians, a club called The Generation. You can connect the dots here and realize that this club is about to become Electric Lady Studios.
Wow.
And his manager asked me if I would found me to see if I would design the club. Of course, I'm a young 22-year-old. I'm getting a call from Jimi Hendrix's manager. You can imagine my answer. I designed the club at night. I don't give up my job. And at the 11th hour, the club got scrapped and became a studio. Thank you, Eddie Kramer, who I wanted to strangle at the moment. Eddie has gone on to become a lifetime friend and my daughter's godfather. Eddie had no interest in a club, but was very interested in a studio.
Yeah.
In the back of the club would be a little control room where you would record acts from the club. So the dots are starting to be connected. And I, of course, thought I would be dismissed from the project, but as fate would have it, I was allowed to stay on the project. So I quit my job. I became an intern for a radio station acoustician to sort of learn how to do the details for isolation and whatnot. And Eddie and I sort of winged it, so to speak. I read everything I could read. As I said, I left my job, became an intern, and a year and a half later, the studio was built and open. I guess career tip, if you need a first project, make it a famous one. Before the studio was built, I had 3 other studios to design. The summer of '69, August '69, I was at Woodstock, and I'm already designing Bearsville Studios and was starting to get calls from other studios. So it was a very fascinating moment, and my life turned almost on a dime. I never really looked back, except for 1 or 2 speed bumps. Never really looked back from that day. That's the longer version of the story.
Well, hey, man, that is beyond amazing on how those chain of events kind of come together, and I think that's kind of a testament to, kind of the universal design of things, I think. So it's very cool. Now,
serendipity is a word that I always believed in. A lot of people confuse serendipity with luck.
Yeah.
But they're not the same. This is not the show to get into those two, but these kinds of events that can change your life are always possible at all moments. It's just a question of whether you're looking for them or you're ready to accept them when they come, et cetera, et cetera. Different sometimes changes are bigger than others. These were serendipitous moments that just struck, and the gods were with us, and some other, just some very, very good fortune. But then you have to seize the moment. You have to do the work.
Yeah. You have to step up to the plate and hit the ball.
I think, I've thought about this many, many times. For 25 years, I didn't think about it. Or when Electric Lady was done after the first year, I didn't go back for 25 years. I never even thought about it. And then they sort of had a 35th anniversary or something and sat on panels. And I got to sort of I went back and kind of looked at what had happened. And then I realized that the most important event of that for me was becoming an intern. It's funny, of all the different things that I did during that time, that was the one that probably ends up being the most important, was that I took a risk. Yeah. I left a very good day job to go work for free, struggled a little bit, but it was the only way to learn the subject at the time, and there was no other way.
Yeah, schools like the Art Institute, I would imagine, weren't around really focusing in on that.
Yeah, it was an interesting decision, but I didn't realize I was making it at the time. Enough on me. Enough on history. Let's move forward.
Yeah. Well, you know what? It does lead to something. This was one of the questions that came out. Do you work quite extensively with the artists that you build studios for? I would imagine Eddie Kramer had a lot of input into it. You said you're designing it with him, but how about Jimmy? How about Jay-Z? Are these individuals in the mix with you?
Well, we do a lot of. 45 years later, I've been blessed with a wide variety of projects. And not all of them, by the way, are recording studios or production environments. We do other kinds of work in what I would call technology architecture. We do commercial acoustic consulting. We do AV design. Last year we got to do AV design for three of the big FIFA stadiums for the World Cup in Brazil. So we do a lot of different kinds of work. But in the studio world, the traditional recording studio world, which we're focusing on this show, I suspect, when you're dealing with a specific artist, and that is what's been happening in the last 15 years. I mean, we are in the era of project studios. All studios are project studios these days. In fact, I maintain that studios were always project studios. That's all. Well, we can come back to that if you wanted to. I just gave a talk on that recently at NAMM. When you're dealing with a very specific artist, by definition, that studio has to have their signature. So you do have to pick up on what that signature is going to be. That's the good news. The other side of the story is that not all artists have the same breadth of understanding of technology. Some do, but many don't. And so, you have to balance those two issues. Whereas when you're dealing with more commercially oriented studio owners, they're usually quite sophisticated when it comes to technology. They understand the business of studios, et cetera. So it depends a little bit about who you're dealing with. But sooner or later, at least for me, for our group, for my philosophy for 45 years, the studio needs a signature. Electric Lady had a signature.
Hey, John, I hate to interrupt you, my man. We're going to a commercial break right now. It's music's come on. This is the Changing Stage radio show with Florentino Buenaventura and John Storyk. We'll be right back.
Thank you for listening to WS Radio. Improve your business and your life with useful information from experts and thought leaders. WS Radio is radio with ROI.
You may have heard me brag about Progressive Medical Center and just how much they've helped me with my health. And Dr. Goley, one thing that you have helped so many people with is migraines.
Unfortunately, there are millions and millions of Americans who are suffering with migraines and headaches, and they're debilitating because it affects the quality of their life, and they cannot function properly. At Progressive, we get to the root cause because we understand that migraines could be caused by nutritional deficiencies, hormonal imbalances, believe it or not, delayed food sensitivities. And once we determine what the real reason is, we put a plan of action together with medication that we get them off slowly, and we put them on an all-natural approach, and the results are amazing.
Incredible. I mean, there's so many people that can say they don't live their lives with migraines anymore thanks to Progressive Medical Center.
And that's what's exciting and rewarding to us as physicians, because we help our patients take control of their health, and that's why they're living well.
Why don't you get a hold of Progressive Medical Center today? Don't live in pain. Don't have migraines anymore. Just go to their website, progressivemedicalcenter.com.
This is your life. Live it well.
Hi, this is Rob Barnett, VinVillage.com, where wine lovers connect. Be sure to tune in weekly to Vin Village Radio for exclusive, in-depth interviews with the who's who in wine and food.
Are you ready to get real about your music? My name's Florentino, and I'm the host of The Changing Stage. On my show, we get the real stories of how great music and musicians are made. You know who else is real? The professionals at musicpower.com. They help serious players make music happen with the right advice, direction, and cutting-edge gear. Isn't it time you leave amateur hour behind? Then go to musicpower.com. Real musicians, real gear.
Do you want to be a professional coach? Are you in business trying to make a real difference with people you manage or work with? Have you started a coaching practice that isn't quite getting off the ground? Get the skills you need to be a successful coach today with the Coaches Training Program from Accomplishment Coaching. The Coaches Training Program will show you how to help others focus and be more fulfilled. Whether you want to improve your company's bottom line or create a thriving coaching practice, Accomplishment Coaching can give you the distinctions and practices you need to coach others effectively today. Accomplishment Coaching has spent 6 years developing a cutting-edge coaches training program that will have you ready to coach people professionally in just 12 months, and you don't have to take time off work to do it. To find out more about the Coaches Training Program, just call 1-888-548-6813. That's 1-888-548-6813.
Information, news, and entertainment on demand.
WSRadio.com.
Welcome to The Changing Stage, music gear talk from the manufacturers and musicians who define the biz. Here's your host, Florentino Buenaventura.
All right, you're back with The Changing Stage, second segment with John Storyk, the rock star of rock stars, the man who makes the studio sound so good. And John was just talking to us a little bit about some of the artists that he had worked with and their hands-on approach or not so hands-on approach. That question, by the way, John, came in from Sean Jones. He wrote into us on that. He was actually specifically asking about Jimmy and hands-on approaches. And, after you finished that, he also wanted to know, do you have any stories, bizarre stories from the artists that have, made some crazy requests or something of that nature?
Yeah, well, we have. Some of them are NDAs. A lot of the higher the profile of the artist, sometimes we can't talk about it. But for instance, we had one artist. This is one we can't mention who it is, as you're very well known, who simply wanted to mix every record from the rear producer's desk, but 4 feet to the right. I couldn't even believe that somebody would want this.
Okay.
It's very unusual if you understand what I'm talking about. I said, why? He said, well, that's just where I sit. Okay. It just sort of took me off guard. There's kind of not very much of an argument against symmetry in control rooms. So we basically set the room up to sort of have this off-centered mixing position. We've had people that wanted fish tanks in their control rooms, skylights, trees, all kinds of sizes and shapes. So that's we just finished a wonderful project. This one I can discuss for Adam Young. Adam Young is Owl City, as you might know. Owl City is basically the work of one person, a fantastic young talent, just brilliant. Well, near genius, in my opinion. And we just built a private studio for him in his residence in Minnesota. And it's basically had to basically look like the inside of a log cabin. The house is a log cabin. Is our first.
Sounds awesome.
Well, it did sound awesome, and we ended up, not only does it look very cool, but we ended up finally getting into once we accepted the fact that this was going to be the vernacular and the spirit of the room, we just sort of ended up trying to figure out how we could actually use these logs as diffracting surfaces. It wasn't really that difficult, but we ended up making pretty good use of the material. I remember we did a studio in Iceland, and the folks was the first and still existing many years later. And they said, we don't have any natural materials in Iceland. Everything in Iceland is imported except lava rock. I said, well, let's just start using as much lava rock as we could, which is exactly what we ended up doing. So we could go on and on with these stories, but it ties in with where we left off before the break. Every studio, sooner or later, needs some kind of signature. It might be an equipment signature. It traditionally seemed to always have been driven by the technology, and often by the technology manufacturers. I love technology, and I appreciate the manufacturers, but I never thought they should drive it. I always thought that the spirit of the room and the programming of the room should drive the feel and look and behavior, and ultimately the performance of the room. And in a sense, maybe the stars were perfectly aligned when the first person I ever met was Jimmy. Jimmy spoke very few words to me. Most of my dialogue was with Eddie, but Jimmy's image of what a studio should be, and I try to go back to 1968, 69. There weren't a lot of studios like this. It should there were very few, and there were no studios south of 42nd Street in Manhattan. Not to mention large studios owned by an independent artist. There were very few. And his goal was that his image was the studio would have no hard edges. It would all be soft. It would all be white. Much of it is still white. And that lights would change, and the mood of the studio would be whatever needs to take place on that day. We need to move in furniture, we move in furniture. We need to make the room blue, we make the room blue. That was his idea. So I'm a young 22-year-old person hearing this. I said, well, that sounds logical. Never even occurred to me that just simply wasn't really going on. 45 years later, we just opened up a studio for Paul Epworth, and it's all white. You might have seen it. It just recently got blasted everywhere. His notion was exactly the same. Virtually everything is white.
Yeah.
And then every surface can change in color. Of course, now it's much easier to do. I mean, now you can get this kind of light coloring technology at Home Depot. In 1969, it was very hard to do, very tricky to do. It's almost like 45 years I've come full circle, but my core beliefs are the same, that the programming and the spirit and the signature of the studio have to be defined. The technology falls into place. It's part of that signature. It's part of that spirit.
Yeah. We had a couple of questions about technology as well. One of the Facebook listeners, Racer X GTO, said that the Jungle City studio with the monitors, the Ray Audio RM-7Vs, he hadn't seen a design with those implemented the way you did with Jungle City. Were those speakers the centerpiece, or was it the console? What kind of inspired that design?
Well, Jungle Cities is one of our proudest moments. I mean, Annie Mincielli is a genius. That's the owner and the engineer. I mean, she's Alicia Keys' engineer for years.
Yeah.
And we worked with Annie and Alicia on the first Oven Studios. That was Alicia's private studio in Long Island. And I think that's where we kind of, as a team, and I view it much as a team, really honed our chops. It really refined our thinking about how you combine mood, attitude, and technology. Alicia's studio was the first studio to have a hybrid console, the AWS. It was the first AWS in New York.
Okay.
And so, no stranger to technology, Alicia. Actually, she's pretty comfortable with it. But it was the beginning of this kind of old school, new school, or hybrid analog-digital console. There's a place for both of them. In other words, you use the right tool for the right moment in the recording process. When it was time for Annie to do her own studio, what her dream was, and what our collective dream was to ultimately find a site that would allow us to have very large control room, artist-friendly, looking into a medium-sized studio, not particularly big, because her client roster is 5 to 8 people, not gigantic groups. But that basically this environment would be floating in the air, and that it would be transparent. You could see in both directions on top of Manhattan. And that's exactly what we finally did. So the spirit of that design is that no matter where you look, you see the skylines of Manhattan. If you turn around in the control room, the entire rear wall, which is diffusive, is in fact a clear, transparent diffuser. You see all the way down to the New World Trade Center. If you look forward, the Augsburger monitors, which is essentially what they're a model of, they're a type of Augsburger monitor, has been inserted in the glass wall. So it's actually part of the glass wall.
Oh, that's great.
This was our third time trying this. First, we tested this in a studio in Brazil where we mounted the speakers right in glass. Wow. And then you look through, and the entire studio on the far side is floor-to-ceiling glass overlooking, and you see the Empire State Building, Hudson River, etc. So the spirit was this kind of transparency. To do that, you need to engage some tricks. You've got an awful lot of hard reflective surfaces that have to be controlled. But the headline on that is glass need not be your enemy. You just have to know how to angle it, and then you have to pay attention to the other glass surfaces and get them to behave exactly the way you want to. People I think, have tended for many years to make rooms much too dead, much too non-reverberant. But in fact, the most exciting rooms are rooms that actually have reverberation to them, have a musicality to them. Okay, so the goal is to not make the rooms dead, but to control the reflections and let the naturalness or reverberation time, in this case, or decay rate, to be more exact, be sustained a little bit longer, so that musically these rooms are, have this kind of sensational feeling to it. On top of that, Annie had a very special combination of technology. She put in a pretty souped-up duality, giving her the digital control that she needed. But she also had bought one of the few EMI consoles that you could find from England and use that as a sideboard, as an outboard piece of equipment. If you can imagine an entire EMI analog console as an outboard piece of equipment. So old school, new school was truly the headline. So a lot of different elements combined to give the studio a signature. That's my point, as a signature, as a personality, as a flavor.
Yeah. A soul, if you will, to it. I think they
exactly.
all do.
Actually, thank you very much. Yeah, good. Yeah. I'm going to use that again.
Well,
we're writing that down.
We got those commercial breaks, man. Those things are pesky. We're going to be coming on to that in a few short moments here. You're worldwide. Offices, where do you have offices at?
We have offices in Switzerland, Argentina, and Brazil, and then we have reps in about 8 other locations, West Coast, California, Miami, Barcelona, China, and India and St. Petersburg, Russia. Most of these offices and reps are, for the most part, former students of mine. That's kind of that intern program in reverse.
Hey, John, we're gone for a second.
Do you want to be a professional coach? Are you in business trying to make a real difference with people you manage or work with? Have you started a coaching practice that isn't quite getting off the ground? Get the skills you need to be a successful coach today with the Coaches Training Program from Accomplishment Coaching. The Coaches Training Program will show you how to help others focus and be more fulfilled. Whether you want to improve your company's bottom line or create a thriving coaching practice, Accomplishment Coaching can give you the distinctions and practices you need to coach others effectively today. Accomplishment Coaching has spent 6 years developing a cutting-edge coaches training program that will have you ready to coach people professionally in just 12 months, and you don't have to take time off work to do it. To find out more about the Coaches Training Program, just call 1-888-548-6813. That's 1-888-548-6813.
Love to read but just don't have the time? With Audible.com, you can catch up on reading simply by listening. Audible has the largest collection of digital audiobooks, over 85,000 titles in every genre. Listen to a bestseller on your iPhone, BlackBerry, Android smartphone, or one of 500 other compatible devices. Visit audible.com/WS Radio today and get a free audiobook when you try Audible free for 14 days. That's audible.com/WS Radio.
You've heard me bragging about Progressive Medical Center and how they've helped me feel so much healthier. But one thing, Dr. Agoli, that a lot of people come to you with is just unexplained pain. They just can't get any relief. Why can Progressive Medical Center's pain management center help them?
First of all, we have to acknowledge that pain is for real, and you've got acute pain and chronic pain. Here's the problem. That acute pain turns to chronic, which is long-standing, and no one's getting to the root cause. There's several key diagnostic components that help us get to the root of what's causing this pain. Is it inflammation? Once we do a thorough evaluation to get to the root cause, determine if it's structural or if it's a metabolic issue. And this way, we put an individualized program for pain management involving correcting the spine, using certain injections when necessary, and we get our patients out of pain quicker, and they stay out of pain because we teach them how to live their life well.
Don't let yourself live in pain any longer. Get a hold of Progressive Medical Center today at progressivemedicalcenter.com.
Progressive Medical, this is your life, live it well.
Are you ready to get real about your music? My name's Florentino, and I'm the host of The Changing Stage. On my show, we get the real stories of how great music and musicians are made. You know who else is real? The professionals at musicpower.com. They help serious players make music happen with the right advice, direction, and cutting-edge gear. Isn't it time you leave amateur hour behind? Then go to musicpower.com. Real musicians, real gear.
Talk to me.
Information, news, and entertainment on demand.
WSRadio.com.
Welcome to The Changing Stage, music gear talk from the manufacturers and musicians who define the biz. Here's your host, Florentino Buenaventura.
Yeah, we're back. It's the Changing Stage radio show on a special day and time. We are with Mr. John Storyk, the rock star of rock stars, acoustical designer to the greatest architectural audio architectures in the world. And he was just telling us a little bit about being worldwide, and the people who operate his offices worldwide are quite often his students. And there's actually one partner that you have that's very special, near and dear. And there was kind of an interesting question that a listener sent in. I don't expect you to answer it, but I think it's kind of a good segue. Martha Ruiz, she asked, I'm going to ask here, which she meant on Facebook, what does he think about plus size models? I thought that was just classic. About plus size models, size 12 to 24. It has nothing to do with audio. I don't expect you to answer that, but I thought that was...
Yeah, I'm not going to answer that.
I thought that was a pretty funny question.
Actually, my answer is I don't think about it.
But it kind of...
It's an interesting question, I guess.
Yeah, it was kind of an interesting question. That was the most random question. She got the random
That's
question.
That's pretty random, yeah.
But you do have a partner that kind of... that you are interested in. Your wife is your partner and name signature on
yes,
on your company.
Yes, she is. My career is sort of got two halves, although the second half has now become bigger than the first half. And I met Beth about 27 years ago, and within a year we became partners in everything.
Wow.
And actually, we became business partners slightly before we became married, which is one reason why it's Walter Storyk Design Group. And everything changed. Beth brought color to my black and white and brought grounding to my disconnected voltage and brought a lot of other things. And is a superwoman of quite enormous magnitude, more or less, runs the not only the human resources and operations of our business, but also leads the interior design effort. About a third of our projects require us to be the people who put certainly the surface signature on our projects. Quite a few projects other people are doing that on, or it's not applicable, i.e. a sound system for a stadium. There is no interior design. But on many of our projects, and often the ones that really shine out, she is leading that effort with a number of other people in our organization, in addition to running the organization. So, yeah, life changed quite a bit. My other partners all more or less have the same story. They were my students in one way or another. I teach at a number of schools, and then they became interns. And no lying here, we encourage interns, and if we see a brilliant one, we're going to offer them a job. And in every one of these instances, the answer was yes, but I want to go back to my country. So the first one was Europe. I said, well, let's just open an office in Basel, Switzerland, which between you and me, I never even heard of. And, well, actually, it's not true. I had heard of it, but it's not like that. We had this master plan to spread around the world. It's grown very organically, and I think that's probably why it works. And each one of these offices, they operate semi-independently, but we work as a team. So we're trading services back and forth all the time. A lot of our calculations are done in Switzerland. Sometimes our drafting would be done in South America. Each office will check the work of other offices. All design still goes through my eye, at least for the moment, while I can. And so it's one team. I have about 40 to 50 people in any given moment when you add it all up. It's very exciting. So, but it's not like that was my plan one day. I'm not that smart. Believe me, I'm not.
Well, I think that, like you mentioned, serendipitously, these things kind of happen, and it comes from, a positive, forward motion, and just, like you said, taking the bull by the horns. When you started out, you said, I'm going to be an intern and step away from a decent paying job, and then kind of move on to something that you felt was a higher, return for the future. So I think that is, an awesome question, or that's an awesome, statement for you.
Yeah, we're a family business. I mean, we're getting a little bit larger, but we operate like a family organization. Kids have been born, going through school, and are out of college already in our lifespan. It's actually it's kind of exciting, and we still, there's a core group of about 15 of us throughout the offices that are lifers. This is all we've wanted to do. This is what we will be doing. We're passionate about the work, and that's what we do every day. It's still exciting.
And I'm, like I said, I'm a huge fan, and I can say that I heard your name before, but I really didn't know your history and your team's history until I kind of got into the research of it, and I just just the magnitude of all of that has floored me. And you've been you've also been a creator of things like you were mentioning, putting speakers into glass into the architecture. We had David Harrison. He was asking about new materials, particularly absorbent glass, and the role of lighting in the studio. And then, what kind of technology, is on the forefront today that you see isn't quite used as much, but will be in the future? And what kind of stuff has you and your team created to bring about sound that hadn't been found before?
Well, I'm often asked this question or a variation of. It's a good question. It's a great question. I am thinking about that oversized plus question, but I don't know if I'm going to get that answer. That is a random question.
I thought I'd just throw that out to you, man, because I just like when I seen that. I thought it was funny.
Throw it out, yeah. So, we always risk the possibility that, from week after week, month after month, we'll be repeating ourselves. I mean, to a certain extent, all recording studios have many, many things in common. So it's not like we're inventing the wheel at 100% every single time. I mean, it's just inappropriate, particularly if you're doing a lot of them. 3,500 is a lot of studios. That's just a lot of output.
Yeah, that is.
But it is exciting, and we're always on the lookout for new tools and toys. The ones that have excited me the most in the most recent past, and that I continue to look forward, I know them, and I'm not shooting them out in any particular order. We're very excited by oralization. This is the ability to model rooms on paper in a computer,
mm-hmm.
and then listen to the rooms from the computer. So basically, we are creating the impulse response from the drawing by touching and assigning values to the surfaces, and then putting a send and receive transducer in the model, okay, and then passing sound kind of like the reverse of the test, and you can hear the room. It's just not new, but it's really starting to get fine-tuned and really starting to enjoy more practice at desktop level. In the last 5 years, we're using it a lot, and we've gotten, we think, pretty good at it. We have our own algorithms that we add to it and our own values for absorption and reflection and diffusion. And we've gotten some really, really good results. It's fun to be able to listen to these rooms and have very high prediction accuracy. So we're enjoying a lot of success with that. I think micro-perfing materials, by that I mean being able to make very small holes or slots in them, have really changed everything. It's allowing us to cover an entire surface in wood, but make it absorptive.
Wow.
By putting small holes in plastic, you can look through it, but it's absorptive glass. It's not really glass, although we have micro-perfed glass, very expensive. This gives us great new palettes of architectural, of architecture that we're allowed to and encouraged to use now instead of wrapping soft, fuzzy stuff in fabric, et cetera, et cetera. Very thin, low-frequency control is another one. We're very, very happy to see finally arriving. Basically, membrane absorbers. And membrane absorbers have been around for a long time as a concept. That's not particularly new, but they've basically always been homemade. But now enter the world of prefabricated membrane absorbers. Okay, thin membrane absorbers. Thin for me is 4 inches or less. And you now have a very, very valuable tool for controlling low-frequency behavior in small rooms. And small rooms is where most of our industry is headed. Equipment is getting smaller. Real estate is getting more expensive. 95% of the work is taking place in a mix mode or a direct recording mode. The need for lots and lots of very big rooms is diminishing. So as rooms get smaller, okay, the first eigentone or standing wave frequency gets higher, and so low-frequency behavior actually is harder in small rooms than in big rooms. Large rooms are actually not that hard to control low frequency. So the idea of small, thin, prefabricated, relatively inexpensive low-frequency control devices is very, very exciting, and we're always on the lookout for a new one. Whenever we see one, we get it. We start testing it. We have our own lab in Switzerland where we do this testing. So these are some of the new things that we're always on the lookout. We're more users of these tools rather than inventors.
John, it's that time again. John, I hate to interrupt you, sir. Got that music playing again. We'll be right back in a few short moments for our final segment, and we'll finish that thought up. Changing Stage, WS Radio.
Hi, this is Rob Barnett, CEO and founder of VinVillage.com and the Wine and Dine Show on Vin Village Radio. Do you have a wine, event, product, or service to promote? Then contact VinVillage.com to reach thousands of wine lovers across the country. VinVillage connects like-minded wine enthusiasts with unique and exclusive wines, events, products, and services. To learn more, contact us on VinVillage.com. VinVillage is where wine lovers connect.
Are you ready to get real about your music? My name's Florentino, and I'm the host of The Changing Stage. On my show, we get the real stories of how great music and musicians are made. You know who else is real? The professionals at musicpower.com. They help serious players make music happen with the right advice, direction, and cutting-edge gear. Isn't it time you leave amateur hour behind? Then go to musicpower.com. Real musicians, real gear.
You've heard me bragging about Progressive Medical Center and how they've helped me feel so much healthier. But one thing, Dr. Agoli, that a lot of people come to you with is just unexplained pain. They just can't get any relief. Why can Progressive Medical Center's Pain Management Center help them?
First of all, we have to acknowledge that pain is for real, and you've got acute pain and chronic pain. Here's the problem. That acute pain turns to chronic, which is long-standing, and no one's getting to the root cause. There's several key diagnostic components that help us get to the root of what's causing this pain. Is it inflammation? Once we do a thorough evaluation to get the root cause, determine if it's structural or if it's a metabolic issue. And this way, we put an individualized program for pain management involving correcting the spine, using certain injections when necessary, and we get our patients out of pain quicker, and they stay out of pain because we teach them how to live their life well.
Don't let yourself live in pain any longer. Get a hold of Progressive Medical Center today at progressivemedicalcenter.com.
Progressive Medical, this is your life, live it well.
Do you want to see Elevate in person? Do you want to meet Stephanie, Sierra, and Ariel in person? Well, we're coming to your city. All you have to do is go to wedemand.com/elevate. You heard me. wedemand.com/elevate. You love their music? They put on a great show. It's time to invite them into your domain. wedemand.com/elevate is all you have to do. I'm out. This is KW Reed. Baby, baby, baby.
I'm Professor Burke from Farmers Insurance, and this is 30 Seconds of Smart. So you want to save money on your auto insurance. Get an alarm, drive less,
taxi,
graduate, bundle policies, don't get pulled over, make automatic payments, beep, boop, beep, beep, boop, and, of course, talk to farmers. Because the more you know about auto insurance, the more you can save.
We are farmers. Bum, ba-dum, bum, 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 bum.
Get smarter about your insurance at farmers.com.
In California, Nevada, and Arizona, call 858-405-0078.
Talk to me.
Information, news, and entertainment on demand.
WSRadio.com.
Welcome to The Changing Stage, music gear talk from the manufacturers and musicians who define the biz. Here's your host, Florentino Buenaventura.
All right, it's the fourth and final segment for the Changing Stage radio show, and we have the guest John Storyk on with us. My name's Florentino. John, you back?
Yes, I am.
Very, very cool, sir. Wanted you to finish up that thought, and we have a caller calling in, so we're going to take a call here in a short moment.
Okay.
So you were finishing up.
You know, I'm listening to the ads. One of your ads was for Audible, the people who make the audio tapes.
Yeah.
And, we did their studios. I know those guys.
Yeah, that's things are all kind of interconnected to a certain degree. So
to a certain degree, we're all connected.
Yeah, yes. So you were saying about the new materials. What I wanted you to finish your thought. These commercials, they just kind of come up on us. You have to pay the bills though.
Well, I listed as many. Just a few. We touch on them. We're very fortunate. I mean, because of the position we've worked ourselves into, we're hearing about almost everything first. I mean, not actually literally first, but everybody who makes anything technically or architecturally that they think is interesting in the acoustics world, we're going to hear about it very early, sometimes before it's even pushed into the marketplace. People want us to know about it. Sometimes they're asking us to see if we can use it as a test product. Yeah. So we're very, very lucky. So we're not really inventors of materials. What we are is inventors of needs for material. So there have been, for instance, the whole idea of a very, very thin prefabricated membrane absorber. I can remember some conversations with one specific manufacturer suggesting that they go out and try to figure out how to do it. And they did, and then we ended up using it. Sometimes if a product comes out and it's not behaving as advertised, we will tell them in confidence. That's fun. So we're very fortunate. But we're people who use cool ideas and cool materials to, I'm circling back again, to basically enhance the soul of an environment. I'm going to steal your word, my friend. I like that word.
Feel free. I borrowed it from somebody else. So, John, we have Tim Dolbear is on the phone with us. Tim is a writer for Mix Magazine. He is the owner of Eclectica Recording Studios, as well as he is the product expert for Magix with Samplitude and Sequoia. And he wanted to ask you a question.
Okay, I'm here.
Timmy, you there, sir?
Hey, how's it going? Great to meet you. Great for the opportunity to ask you questions. So,
I'm here.
The question I have for you, I had a bunch, but this was the one that I felt was the most general, where people would want to know this also. They probably have never even thought about this. But how much does the computer screen, the monitor screen, come into play, being that it's a large glass surface straight in front of you in your listening environment? Because I know putting it off to the side, suddenly your head is tilted. You're no longer listening to the speakers correctly. But having it straight in front of you, just speaking, you can tell that there is a ton of reflections coming right back at you.
Well, the computer screen is a never-ending nuisance, I will admit.
Yes.
There's no two ways about it. I hate when they're off to the side, unless they are symmetrically off to the side. Then they don't bother our prime listening position, but you are right. People then, of course, are turned when they look at them. It all depends how people are using them. In the broadcast world, a lot of times people are using those screens more as what I call occasional references. When people are using them in a Pro Tools mode, which is getting to be pretty common. It's not getting to be pretty common. It's typical. Now we got a dilemma. And sometimes people will like to put very big screens in the middle of a stereo environment. That one, of course, I have no problem with. And that one, from an acoustic point of view, I prefer. but most people still want small screens close. There has been, and that's a fight, because those small screens often seem to get in the way of main monitors and often seem to be exactly where you want near-field monitors. Some of the console manufacturers have actually made some nice progress, and some of the desk manufacturers like Argosy have made some nice progress in figuring out how to get the screens sunk on an angle. And if you do the drawings, there are some ways that you can get them down and out of the way so that you can have your cake and eat it too. You can be looking at a screen down, and it's not going to get, it's not going to get in the way of the reflection. It's not the glass that's really causing the problem. It's the fact that this object becomes a shadow for the direct radiation from a monitor. So the glass is not really the issue. It's the fact it's the object that's the issue. So we're always fighting with it. I think we've had some creative solutions for it. Sometimes just taking the main monitor and raising them a little bit, even though we know ear level monitoring is the best. Raising them a little bit, but we'll take care of that problem. You don't want to raise them too much because then you start to get a comb filter off the console. So there's a constant battle between console reflection and monitor masking. The screen monitor masking. So, but it's an issue we've got to deal with. We study it pretty hard on every project. Study it quite hard.
Interesting. Thanks.
Okay, my pleasure. Thank you.
Hey, Tim, thanks, man, for calling in. That was a great question, and I think, that does, people don't think about how these, appliances that we use to make the music kind of affect the actual sound of the environment, because we didn't have a whole lot of this stuff early on. So we have another question from Will Janes. Will wanted to find out. He works for SIR, and he's a technician for SIR, and he's building a home studio. And he wants to find out, are there principles? How would you steer somebody who's putting together a pretty decent home studio without having to break the piggy bank, if you will?
Well, okay, and you want to add world peace onto that question too, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. I was wondering. I was wondering. Only 8 minutes to go here. I was wondering when that question was going to come, but that's a good one. And kudos for asking it. That's a big question. I've spent 45 years chasing this answer. So by definition, answering it in 2 minutes is a little bit of a raw, but let's see if we can help. I think the first thing that everybody has to do is to make sure they understand what world they're in. Are you in the isolation world, or are you in the internal room acoustics world? It's two different worlds. It's maybe the most important concept I try to get everybody to understand. Okay, most of the money that's spent in studios is spent in trying to isolate the studios from either outside noise or from the noise of the studio bothering its neighbors. So programming, that's the T-shirt you want to have on at all times. Okay, and try to figure out as best as possible how to deal with that isolation issue. Quiet site, quiet studio. Sometimes the solution is a social solution. Just don't work so loud, or don't work so loud after 10 o'clock at night, et cetera, et cetera. But if you do need isolation, you're going to break the bank. There's physics that cannot be robbed here. So get that out of the way first and understand what the issue is. People call all the time with projects, and they want to discuss budgets. And after I'm finished listening for a while, I finally reduce it to the boring subject of isolation. We're not going to work that loud, and what does that loud mean? So you have to deal with that issue. Once that's solved, actually getting rooms to sound good is not really that expensive. First, try to get your geometry correct. Okay, geometry is the biggest single way you can get eigentone arrangement, which is a fancy term for standing waves. There's nothing wrong with standing waves. It's just how they're organized. You can get this organization well underway by just having a good room ratio.
Hey, John, I hate to interrupt you, man. We don't have enough time for John Storyk. This has been an amazing show.
We were just getting going here.
I know. We need to bring you back, sir, because this has been awesome. This is a Changing Stage radio show with WS Radio Networks. Thank you.
Progressive Medical.
Hey, this is Heidi Rue, and you know, Progressive Medical Center has literally changed my life and my health, but I'm not the only one. Adele suffered from bone deterioration, bone overgrowth, profound muscle discomfort, physical exhaustion, and mental fog. In fact, the bone deterioration becomes so serious that she had to have back surgery. Well, after the surgery, she still didn't feel well, and so that's when she heard about Progressive Medical Center. Progressive Medical Center discovered that her adrenals weren't working properly, her hormones were out of whack, and the drugs she had been taking were doing more harm than good. Adele came into Progressive Medical Center in a walker, physically and mentally exhausted. But now she's a world traveler. She hikes and walks several miles a day, and it's all thanks to Progressive Medical Center. 770-676-6000. 770-676-6000.
Progressive Medical. This is your life. Live it well.
Take a break from politics. Tune in and learn something. WS Radio shows are worth your time and are filled with tips and advice. Add us to your lunch routine, and we'll give you a meal for your mind.
Are you ready to get real about your music? My name's Florentino, and I'm the host of The Changing Stage. On my show, we get the real stories of how great music and musicians are made. You know who else is real? The professionals at musicpower.com. They help serious players make music happen with the right advice, direction, and cutting-edge gear. Isn't it time you leave amateur hour behind? Then go to musicpower.com. Real musicians, real gear.
Do you want to be a professional coach? Are you in business trying to make a real difference with people you manage or work with? Have you started a coaching practice that isn't quite getting off the ground? Get the skills you need to be a successful coach today with the Coaches Training Program from Accomplishment Coaching. The Coaches Training Program will show you how to help others focus and be more fulfilled. Whether you want to improve your company's bottom line or create a thriving coaching practice, Accomplishment Coaching can give you the distinctions and practices you need to coach others effectively today. Accomplishment Coaching has spent 6 years developing a cutting-edge coaches training program that will have you ready to coach people professionally in just 12 months, and you don't have to take time off work to do it. To find out more about the Coaches Training Program, just call 1-888-548-6813. That's 1-888-548-6813.
Hi, this is Felix Taberna, host of Race and Sports Radio. Join our cast and crew every Saturday and Sunday right here at WSRadio.com, beginning at 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern. Race and Sports Radio.